Thomas Sowell today poses a vintage none of the above question. Which of two dangerous candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, poses the greater risk? And the answer is both. Hillary Clinton poses a clear threat to constitutional freedoms, but Donald Trump endangers the nation with his self-absorbed recklessness. A year ago, in August 2015, Dr. Sowell called the Donald the Democrats' trump card. And that was very prescient. I was saying the same thing back then. It is hard to imagine any other Republican candidate who could rescue a thoroughly discredited Hillary Clinton from a devastating defeat in this year's election. But Trumplicans managed to pull it off. Now, 50 prominent Republicans with foreign policy and national security experience have taken the unprecedented step of publicly and collectively announcing that they cannot vote for Donald Trump because they believe that he would be the most reckless president in American history. Anybody want to still debate that? And remember who the current president is. That's the context in which we're speaking here. Why? Well, not only because he has demonstrated repeatedly that he has little understanding of the nation's vital national interests, but because Trump has shown no interest in educating himself, because as a narcissist, he's convinced he already knows everything, right? Trump always wins. Trump is never wrong. Indeed, Donald Trump has shown little real interest in anything besides Donald J. Trump. His response to these criticisms has been completely predictable. Trump has not even tried to answer the charges or to assure the American people on something as important as their survival and the survival of this nation. And of course, because he couldn't answer the charges, he doesn't know enough. He doesn't know anything and takes great pride in it, and so do his brain-dead followers. Instead, there is the standard Trump tactic of launching unsubstantiated charges against his critics. Remember, I'm a counterpuncher! Can't keep his eyes on the prize for a moment, can he? Even if all his charges against his critics were 100% true, that is no assurance to the American people on the vital issues they raised, and for which there are innumerable examples of Trump's own words and deeds to make people worry about what he would do in the White House. The strongest argument, indeed the only argument, for voting for Trump is Hillary Clinton, and that's not really an argument. You know, there is no lesser of two evils here. They're both horribly, hideously evil. For both candidates, the danger is not simply that we might have one bad administration to live through. The far greater danger is that either of them can create an irretrievable catastrophe, and there's no escape. You realize that? No escape. With Hillary in the White House, there's no question whatever that she will nominate candidates for the Supreme Court who will destroy both the First Amendment right to free speech and the Second Amendment right to armed self-protection. And that will undoubtedly be just the beginning of the dismantling of the Constitution. It's amazing there's Barack Obama left any of it to dismantle further. Hillary has already announced her desire to have an existing Supreme Court decision, Citizens United versus FEC, overturned because it said that both corporations and labor unions have a right to free speech. If the government can make free speech illegal, there is virtually nothing else it cannot do, because people will no longer be free to expose their misdeeds. Mrs. Clinton has a long record of concealing her misdeeds, going back to her husband's administration in Washington and in Arkansas before that. Why not vote for Donald Trump then, since he has, well, no, he does have a known agenda for undermining constitutional freedoms. Or have you forgotten, I'm going to open up the libel laws? There are a few things worse than being deprived of our basic constitutional rights, on which our freedom ultimately depends, which we lost 8 years ago, but I digress. But one of those few things is being deprived of life itself by the reckless decisions of a volatile, ill-informed, immature, possibly mentally unbalanced and self-absorbed president in a nuclear age. All too many of Donald Trump's words and actions thus far make him a candidate for the title of the oldest man who has never grown up. Nothing he says against his critics can change that. How did we get into the predicament where our choices for president are narrowed to a candidate who inspires distrust versus a candidate who inspires disgust? And where both are dangerous? Trumplicans, that's how. The Democrats had few and less promising candidates at the outset. The Republicans, however, had a number of candidates with substantial achievements. Republicans opened this game with the stronger hand, but they played that hand into what looks like a defeat at the polls in November. A defeat not only for Trump, but for other Republican candidates tainted by the immature and repellent behavior and stink of the man at the top of the ticket. One key misstep by the Republican establishment was agreeing once again to so-called debates in which a stage full of candidates had time for only short and superficial sound bites. And of course, Trump was and is the king of superficial sound bites. Will the Republican Party learn anything from all this? Will it even survive to learn anything from all this? Probably not. Smug elites rarely and seldom